Are you looking to rent an apartment? Are you a first-time renter? Are you moving out maybe from roommates? Or are you moving to a new state and you don't really know what to do, what the requirements are, anything like that? Well, you came to the right place. Oh, I can't let them take my soul. Nah, 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 no. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Keisha if you're new here, and thank you for clicking on today's video. In today's video, we are going to be talking about apartment tips, tips to renting your first apartment, tips to renting a new apartment, basically just everything you need to know about renting an apartment from an apartment locator. If you guys are new here, I am an apartment locator here in Nashville, Tennessee. So what I say is really going to be based off of my experience here in Nashville as a locator. I know every city can be a little different. Take what I say and kind of fact check depending on the city that you're in. Things could be a little different, but I'm going to preface that now and say that I'm speaking mainly off of what I know for Nashville specifically. I know sometimes on TikTok people will be like, well, I live in New York City and this is blah, 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 blah. I'm like, okay, but we all know New York City is a completely different rental market. Bigger cities versus smaller cities, everything's just different, okay? So like I said, make sure that you know what's going on in your city specifically. But overall, general tips in this video that I think will be helpful to anyone that is looking to rent an apartment. Okay, so my first apartment renting tip is gonna be a little bit of a plug here, but if you live in a city that has apartment locators, I, of course, would 100% recommend working with an apartment locator. If you're in Nashville, I would of course recommend that you work with me specifically, but working with a locator. It's just so helpful to work with someone that literally does this as their full-time job, day in, day out, is in the buildings, in the market, knows what they're talking about, knows all the details. So it's you kind of just have someone with you throughout the whole process, which is just so helpful. I get a lot of people that already live here, that have been living here, that need help. I get a ton of people on my TikTok from out-of-state clients who don't know anything about Nashville, don't know anything about the buildings, and just need guidance. So it's a free service, so you don't have to pay anything to use a locator. It doesn't hurt you to use it. It just really is just a nice free tool to use, especially if you're relocating to a new city. I work with my clients through the whole process, from getting their details, sending them buildings, touring the buildings, helping them with their application, answering any questions up until move-in day. I'm always a text away if they need anything. So it's just so helpful to have someone that is a good resource for you to have. My company that I'm with is Optimigo. So specifically, we have 6 markets. So like I said, I'm in the Nashville market. We also have Chicago, Denver, Austin, Dallas, and Atlanta. So those are our 6 markets. So I'll have a link down in the description below that will connect you directly to me. Even if you put it in a different city, I can always transfer you over to a different agent if you just want to use that link just as a quick little resource to get to Optimigo. But yeah, if you use that link and you're in Nashville, it's going to connect you directly to me so we can work together. But okay, that was my little soft plug I wanted to put in there. So let's move on to the rest of the tips. Something you really need to know is the rental criteria. So here I tell everyone the rental requirements. So as far as income goes, buildings want to see 3 times the monthly rent and monthly income. If you're looking to rent an apartment that's $1,500, they want to see that you make at least $4,500 a month to qualify you for the apartment. I also say a safe credit score is at least 600 plus. Usually people go under 600. We kind of have to reel it in and kind of look at some other factors, but I say 600, around 600 is at least a good credit spot. And of course, the higher the better. And then, as far as background check, they want to see clean background history. So no prior evictions, convictions like felonies, misdemeanors, anything like that. Again, everything's kind of management company specific. So I usually say that 3 times the monthly rent and monthly income and 600 credit score are the bare minimum. But if you have a better of a higher score and you make over the income, you can get a smaller security deposit. So there's different factors that play into it. Sometimes if you're a little low on credit or a little low on income, you'll just get a higher security deposit. There's a management company here that does 2.5 times the monthly rent and monthly income. There's another management company that if we people who have under a 600 credit score, they're more lenient on anything 550 and up. But again, that's just something that being in the market that I've learned. So I'm able to help my clients kind of depending on where they're at. There's also other options like adding a cosigner or guarantor. We won't go too deep into that. But something that you should know if you do have to go that route is that they do have different requirements than just a regular applicant. So if you have a cosigner or guarantor, typically the requirements are 5 times the monthly rent and monthly income and then credit score usually is about 675 and up. If you don't meet the income requirement and you do need a co-signer, but your co-signer doesn't meet the 5 times monthly rent, monthly income, you could also add them as a co-applicant. There are different, I wasn't gonna go too deep into this, but we're already here. So quick little difference there. So if someone signs on as like a co-signer or a guarantor, they are basically just signing on as like, if this person like defaults on the rent, they can't make their payments, I will be here, be the one to cover it. It's just kind of like a safety net for the building. Benefits that are that, you know, you can usually have better approval odds and might even have a smaller security deposit. They're just on there as a co-signer. They don't have access to like your portal or your apartment or anything like that. Another option is to add someone on as a co-applicant. So with that, they're just kind of splitting the requirements with you. So as a guarantor, they're just looking at their income. They don't even need your income as an applicant. Like it's all really falling on the guarantor. As a co-applicant, they would look at the two incomes combined to see if you guys make the rental, the 3 times monthly rent income, and then kind of like average the credit score. So sometimes I tell people if they don't have like somebody in their life that meets those higher requirements, have them sign as a co-applicant. One thing I always say though is that as a co-applicant, they do get access to the portal. They do, if they want to show up to the building and like request a key, they're on the application, so they technically could get a key. So I'm always like, if you have a crazy family or overbearing family or anything like that, probably wouldn't recommend that route for you. Just something to think about, but definitely something that I've had people do plenty of times. Okay, the next step is to set a realistic budget for yourself. So like I said, the buildings want to see 3 times the monthly rent and monthly income, but something that you should also consider is just because, you know, your rent's $1,500, you make $4,500. What other expenses do you have? You have to think about different building fees and like utilities, but you also like, do you have like a really high car payment? Do you have high student loan payments? Do you have like a lot of minimum like monthly credit card payments? Do you have different loans that you're paying on? Like what other monthly expenses do you have? I would definitely recommend to factor all those costs in your head so you do have some margin at the end of the month after you pay your rent. You know, we don't want anyone to be like house poor. So that's a good way to kind of prevent yourself from being house poor, is kind of like taking into consideration not only the like income requirements, but like what is your income and like what are your other expenses and where does that leave you at the end of the month. I've been watching a lot of finance channels lately because I've just been obsessed with them. A good rule of thumb to follow is that your rent shouldn't be more than like 25% of your take home pay. So I think that's like a really good number to kind of keep in mind. My next tip is to research your neighborhoods. There's so many different neighborhoods that you can live in all these cities. I know Nashville specifically, like people who are relocating here for work and have never been here, or who have been here but only been to like Broadway and been on the honky tonk, they don't really know the different neighborhoods. And like I would say, all the different neighborhoods have so many different vibes. So I was asked, like, is there a distance from downtown that you want to be in? Is there a distance from work that you want to be in? Is walkability important? If so, how walkable? Like, do you want to be able to like walk to a grocery store, or are you just like, I just want to be able to walk to at least a coffee shop, and like that's like the minimum. So I always like to ask questions like that to kind of narrow in on where people want to be. It's definitely worth it to research your neighborhoods. Even like I said, here in Nashville, there's so many little neighborhoods and they all have such different vibes to them. Definitely research your neighborhood and know the ins and outs of where you're going to be living, because once you're in that lease, you're in that lease. So my next tip is to make a, again, realistic list of your wants and needs. I always ask my clients on the phone to break them up into must-haves versus preferences. So a must-have being like, if I don't have this, it's a deal breaker. I'm not even gonna look at this apartment. And then preferences being like, this would be really nice to have, but like if it's not there, it'll be okay. It's not a, it's not a deal breaker. Again, I said realistic because sometimes I get clients who have very unrealistic budgets. And I think you really need to like kind of like do like a search online, like realistic for your price range. If you're looking for a 2-bedroom downtown Nashville with floor to ceiling windows for $1,400 and you're not seeing anything on Zillow, don't come to me and ask for it, because like if you're not finding it, it might not exist. If you don't see anything come up when you put in all the little search filters and criteria, you probably need to reassess your expectations, whether that's your budget, whether that's your location, whether it's certain features you're looking for. So be realistic for where you live, because if you're moving somewhere like, Nashville, it's higher in price than a lot of cities. So if you're moving from somewhere like Columbus, Ohio, I don't know, I just said that randomly, things are going to be different. I get people all the time that move from like smaller cities and they're like, I'm paying $1,400 a month for a 2-bedroom. When I lived in Louisville, Kentucky, before I moved to Nashville, I was literally paying like $1,650 a month for a 2-bedroom that was super walkable in such a great part of downtown. I loved it so much. It was $1,600 for a 2-bedroom. That in Nashville would be like $3,000. So you just really have to understand the market you're in, because every market is so different. The pricing's so different. It's also different. So just BFFR, be fucking for real. Seriously. So things to think about: how many bedrooms you need, again, budget, neighborhoods, is in-unit laundry important to you? That's something that's really big. Like, is it important to you? But also, if you're looking for something with a really small budget, is it realistic for you? Kitchen island, is that a must-have? Is that a deal breaker? Pool, fitness center, all these different things. Like, really think about like what you absolutely need to have, and then what would just be like a preference. It's okay to not have everything. I know we all want everything, but even the people that I have that have like the biggest budgets still half the time don't get every single thing they want. So it's okay to not get everything. So just be realistic for what you actually need and like what is real for the price that you're looking to spend in the area that you're in. My next tip is to start your search early, especially right now in the peak of summer when it's literally like prime moving time. Everybody and their mother is moving right now. I always tell people here, so all the buildings out in Nashville, the way they work is they will send renewal notices out to their residents 90 days out from when their lease ends. And then they have up until the 60-day out mark to send it in and say whether they will be renewing or not. Usually I tell people 60 days out is the best time to start looking, because by then all of these buildings and all of these tenants have put in whether they're going to be renewing or not. So you know exactly, we're 60 days out and there's nothing available in your time frame. There's probably not going to be anything unless somebody changes their mind or backs out of an application, but like realistically, probably not going to have anything available. So I always tell people, as my rule of thumb, is to start looking about 60 to 75 days out. I've seen people on TikTok in my comments say something about like some of their cities are 30 days. I don't know if that's true or not, but if it is, then if that's your city and they do renewals on like a 30-day basis, then maybe start looking 30 to 45 days out. The reason I say to look a little early is because sometimes people can put in their notices a little early, but I always say the 60-day mark is best because most people do wait until the absolute last minute to do so. Looking early versus looking late, it's like you just get all the options. When you're looking early, you're checking daily, you're seeing as things pop up, so you almost get like first dibs on things as they pop up. You're able to see the different price fluctuations and track different pricing. You're able to see different specials come and go. Like, you just have so many more options when you're ahead of it versus like looking to move in like, a week or two. Like, you're kind of more limited on options. You're kind of stuck with what's available versus looking early. You just get more options with more buildings. My next tip, especially now in the summertime, is to wait until you're ready to apply to tour. I tell my clients this all the time. Again, I just keep emphasizing summer because the market here in summer is so crazy. Like, everyone's moving. There's less units available. Pricing is higher. It's just insane. So I always tell people, unless you're ready, and it even works even in the winter too, but like summer specifically, just because it's the craziest time of year to move with the rental market. But I always tell people to not tour until you're ready to apply. Because usually when you apply, there's the app admin fee here. It's like $300 on average to apply. But I always say, if you say we tour today, but you're not going to be ready to apply for 2 weeks. So many things could happen. The pricing could change. It could go up. If you're looking at a building with a special, the special could be gone. A lot of buildings right now are doing like look and lease specials, where if you apply within like 24 hours or like 48 hours, you get like extra specials. You're going to miss out on those. The unit could get taken. Like, there's just so many things that could happen. So I'm like, unless you are in a position where you are ready to apply and lock something in, just hold off on touring. It's so much more worth it. Because I'm like, sometimes it works out, yeah, but sometimes I always tell people, it's like, at that point, you are risking breaking your own heart, like falling in love with something. Like, I've had people wait even like a day and the price on the unit they liked went up like $100, $200, or like the unit got taken. I've had units literally get taken while we're touring the building. We go back to the office and the unit's gone. So things are crazy. So I'm like, unless you're ready to apply, just hold off on touring. There's no rush if you're not ready to apply. My next tip is to make sure you understand everything that you are signing up for before you apply. And like I said, usually pay to apply. Here, it's about $300 average, sometimes a little less, sometimes a little more for like the application and admin fee. And buildings are different on whether they'll refund the fees. Usually you don't get the application fee back regardless. Sometimes they'll refund the admin fee if you cancel your application in a certain amount of time. Sometimes they don't. I've had someone where they're like, no, sorry. So make sure you know that this is what you want to move forward with before you submit an application, so you don't have any issues with trying to get your money back, or potentially sending a lease before you really know what you're signing up for. There's so many questions that you should ask when you're touring, but things to really just make sure that really know what are the additional monthly fees on top of rent. I know here, big fees that we see a lot are parking, valet trash, pest control, amenity fee. There's a lot of buildings doing technology fees and stuff like that now. So make sure you know all of that, because if you're looking at an apartment that's $1,500, but there's $200 of fees, your rent's kind of now $1,700. and you still got utilities on top of it and Wi-Fi and renter's insurance. So make sure you know all the fees, make sure you know the breakdown of what like your true monthly cost is going to be like. If there are specials, make sure you know the terms of the specials. I know here buildings, it would be like if you sign on like a 12-month lease, or maybe sometimes it's a 13 or 14-month lease if you have the special. Can you prorate the special or not? If so, like, do they prorate it for you? A lot of buildings, most of the buildings here, you can self-prorate it. They'll apply the credit, you self-prorate it, but like ask that question. There's a couple buildings here where they don't allow you to do it in their system. You have to do it like a backwards way. Still kind of works out, but it's more annoying. So make sure you understand, again, the terms of the special. Make sure you understand, you know, if it's a look and lease, did you apply within the right time? Make sure you understand what your security deposit, well, usually when you apply, you kind of find out your security deposit. Like here, they range from like $300 to a full month's rent, depending. But make sure you just know what the range could be. Make sure you know the different options. You can always ask for an estimate of utilities. Sometimes newer builds, they don't really have an estimate to give you because they're new, but buildings that have been around for a bit can usually kind of give you like a ballpark number. I've also learned that you can call, like here, you can call like the electric company and like the water company and give them the building, like the address and the unit number, and they can give you like a rough estimate of like what the prior tenant was paying. So that's a little life hack that I like to tell people too, because you can kind of see what the person, of course, they're based on usage, but they can kind of give you like an idea of what like that specific floor plan unit size apartment was paying for, you know, the last 6 months or so. And with that, even after you apply, just make sure you really thoroughly read your welcome letter and make sure everything's on there. If you've got specials, what are the specials? Are they listed on there? Make sure everything's right. The price, the move-in date, the lease term, all of it. Make sure if you have a pet on there, it's on there. If you have an ESA pet, make sure that's listed on there so you don't have to pay the fees. Just make sure every little detail is correct. Don't overlook anything, especially if you're signing on a building with specials. Like make sure every little special they offered you is listed on that welcome letter. When do you have to pay rent? Like I know most of the buildings, I think all the buildings here, you could pay up until the 5th and then you're charged a late fee. So make sure you know what day, what's the last day you can pay rent, what's the late fee, how many days late can you be if you need to be late, how does maintenance work, what day did the valet trash come, like all these things. Just make sure you just kind of know really like what you're going to be signing up for. And then my last tip, I mean, I've tried plenty, but to keep this video not 10 hours long, my last tip is to save up the necessary amount of money that you're going to need all in for move-in day. This is also why I like people to start looking early, because it's, especially if money might be a little tight for you or you're moving to a new state, you know, things can kind of be a little tight. If you're starting a new job, maybe you're gonna have like a gap between like paychecks. Really just like make sure you know your all-in price. Obviously, if you sign for something 60 days out, you have 2 months to plan and save for all the costs that you're gonna have, versus if you sign something and you need to move it like 2 weeks, it's kind of like, it's all kind of piled up at once and it's like, okay, here you go. You got 2 weeks to like make sure you have this aside. But here I always say, so you'll need your first month's rent. So if you move in on like the first of the month, you'll need the full month rent. If you move in like a half month, you'll pay like the prorated rent. So whatever day you're moving in, however many days you're living there that month, whatever that rent price comes out to you. You also need to pay like the building fees. So whatever your building fees are, again, if you're moving in like a half month or something, the prorated building fees. So you'll need to sort that out. Security deposit, usually that's due right before you move in. Again, I know here they can range from like $300 to like a full month's rent. So knowing how much of your security deposit you have to pay. I know in other cities, it's not like this in Nashville, but I have people come here sometimes and they're like, do you need first and last month and security deposit? So in Nashville, you don't need last month's rent, but I know there are other cities, bigger cities primarily, that you do have to pay last month's rent as well. So are you in like a bigger city where they're going to ask you for first, last, and security? If that's the case, you also need another month of rent ready to go in your bank account. And then what moving costs do you have? Are you paying for a U-Haul? Do you have movers? You have to think about that because moving can just be so expensive sometimes. So not sometimes, moving just really is expensive. So you'll need to also have those costs aside. Those are usually the fees that you will have to have ready to go by move-in day in order to get your keys, start your lease, and move into your new apartment. So yeah, I think that's everything. I think that's all of my tips for getting an apartment. So I hope this video was helpful. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to comment them. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to comment them down below. I'd be happy to answer any other questions you might have. Yeah, let me know if you guys like this video, if you found it helpful. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, do all the things, and I will see you guys again in another video. Bye guys. Oh, also don't forget to follow me on my Locator TikTok. Now that I have these little mics, I'm gonna post more sit down videos and more tips and stuff. So make sure you follow me at Keisha_Nashville. All my socials are always linked down below. Okay, bye guys. Can't let them take my soul. Nah, 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 no. I can't
so